Use the timecode in the description below to go to the different sections. Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Imagine Affinity Photo and SilkyPix developer got married, had a baby, and the name is ON1 photo row. What I mean by that, I'm going to show you in a moment. In this video, I'm going to explain you all the major functions of ON1 photo row so that you can understand how the software works. If you haven't bought the software, after this video, you can make up your mind whether you want to buy this software or not. And if you have the software already, you can use the exact same video in order to get started with. Now, again, as I said at the beginning of the video, if you want to jump sections from one part to another without going through whole video, you can go to the description, click the time code, and you can jump back and forth. Then you can come back and use the same time code whenever you need it. Now, let's show you how the software works right now. First of all, this is how the interface works when you first time open the software. Now, in order to understand what's going on in the software, I'm going to start from the far left in this section. Can you see it? That's the one. Now, starting from the top, you have this little plus button. Let's say you don't have the folder selected already. What you can do, you can click plus, and that will take you to edit a single photo, and click it. You can browse a folder. If you want to navigate to your folder and then get it there, you can catalog your photo just like Lightroom. So I'm not gonna get in there, but you have this option already. At the bottom, you have this little button called Open the Desktop. This is where you can manually navigate to the folder. So I'm gonna click it, and it immediately take you to your all computer folders, and then you can navigate your files. After that, you have this little camera button. That's the default browse location, so you have to set it up. If you go to the file and preference, or edit and preference, you can select your default. So what means that every time you click it, it will take you to the default browse location where you keep your photograph. Followed by, you have see your catalog folders. Of course, if you're familiar with Lightroom, you can do cataloging using ON1 photo row. I'm just going to tell you one by one, only because I'm going to show you the major function of this software right after that. Now, see your local drives. If you click it, it will take you to the local drives, all the drives you have in your computer. It's very much doing a little bit of roundabout, because there's not much different in between this button, open the desktop, and see your local drives. Now, of course, ON1 has cloud just like Lightroom or Adobe, for example. You have see your albums. So of course, you can create different albums, which is pretty phenomenal in my opinion. Then finally, you have Smart Organize. So if you click it, what happens is that it will use its engine to look for photos. Essentially, this is a whole thing here are alternative version of a Lightroom organizing. So this is more like a really good alternative for Lightroom if you want to change from Lightroom and buy ON1 photo row. This is pretty easy and quick. At the bottom, you have cloud sync status. Of course, as I said, ON1 has a very good cloud system. You have to subscribe it. I think it costs about 5 to 7 euro. It depends. And this is the preference. So you can either go to edit and click preference, or you can click right here, and you have this little help button. Of course, if you click it, if you have any questions, you can immediately click one and it will take you to the help page. Now, this lane, you can close it to have bigger space, such as like that. I'm gonna keep it open so that you can see it, of course. So I'm gonna close it actually, because I don't think I need it, because I'm in the folder that I need it to be. Now, at the bottom, you have show and hide dual mode. So I'm not going to use it. The dual mode, you can do multiple things at the same time. It shows you different photos side by side. Now, as usual, you have different view mode. So now you have a multiple, like a little thumbnail mode. You can either click this one to see one single photo. You can click switch to the film strip view, which is essentially the common one you can see in many other softwares that are available. You can click the side by side compare mode. So essentially you can click this one and control and select another photo, and it will show you a photo side by side. Pretty important tool if you want to compare different photos at the same time. Now, the last one, I'm not going to click it, I'm just going to tell you, is switch to map mode. So if you have a camera with GPS, and it recorded the GPS information. You click this button and it will take you to a map where it shows you where you took the photo. So I'm going to go back to the thumbnail mode first. Now this is obviously zooming in and out. So thumbnail, you can make them really big or small, depends on how many photos you have, and you can organize them by file mode. You can organize them by date of capture, date of modify. Pretty straightforward. Thing extraordinary about it. Now interestingly, this is the important part, raw preview. Now when you select accurate, what happens is that it used the resource of your computer, but it will show you the best quality photo as you are editing. So you better have a really good and strong computer in order to use that mode. Now when you change it to fast, what happens is that now it will show you the low quality of your photo, but good thing about it is that it won't use the maximum resources of your computer, and it can use something really fast and really quick. Now I'm going to click a photo, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to click the preview mode, this one. So we have all the photos at the bottom. Now when you do an edit, whatever edit you do, you can click reset and it will bring it back to where it was. Now we're going to go to the far right, this column. So here you have the browse, of course. Now if you click to edit, this one where you can edit all your photos. Just like that. So you have this immediately, this pan open. Now from the top you have the browse, you have edit, you have resize, print, share, export. Now when you go back to the browse, for example, it changes. What it does exactly, it shows you something else such as layer, panorama, HDR, focus. So HDR, you know that, panorama, you can create panorama with ON1. You can also do focus steering. Good news is that I'm going to show you in this video how to do each of them individually. So stay tuned, don't go away. It's gonna be fun. So I'm gonna go back to edit, and after that you have two options here. So one option, you can select the preset. I'm going to show you some demonstration. For example, I'm going to go to the vivid landscape and select any of them, doesn't matter. So I'm going to click, for example, VL6. So when you click it, it shows something, it shows a beautiful change. Now you can fine tune that preset. For example, now we want to control the shadow, highlight, midtone, you can do that. Or you can click reset all or reset and start from the very scratch. So I'm going to click this one so that I have more space. I don't need the preset anymore, but you know that you have the preset, many of them, and they're beautiful. You can use them or you can use do your own version. Now on the top you have the navigation, and from there you can do zoom 50% and 100%, and you can navigate using this box. You have level, which shows you the histogram. This is what my favorite part, because I really work on with my histogram. You have the metadata, so all the camera, lenses, ISO, shutter speed, so on and so forth. And you have the history, so it shows all the edits you have done, and you can go back and forth. So I'm going to go back to the levels. Now let's start with develop mode. Now at the top you start with the tone and color. At the bottom you have camera profile. So I'm gonna zoom back in so that you can see the whole photo. First of all, this is important to understand that. Now go back to the histogram. In camera profile you have the ON1's own camera profile. ON1 standard, landscape, portrait, vivid, neutral. Good news is that you don't need to apply them. You can just scroll and it shows you the light changes, which is pretty freaking amazing. And then depends on your camera. Even Fuji, Sony, doesn't matter. You can use the Sony picture profile or Fuji picture profile, whatever you have. You can also import them if you have your own version. Linear raw, it is very important. Basically, once you click it, it gets rid of every single integrated camera picture profile by the manufacturer, and you can start from the very scratch. There won't be any interference by the manufacturer's own picture profile, which is very good. This is the manual, so I am not going to show you the manual one because because you know what is exposure, contrast, highlights, midtone, shadow, whites and blacks, which is pretty obvious. What I'm going to show you, however, which is the AI match. So AI match is actually what it does. You can clearly see the description. Looks like the back of the camera by the matching embedded preview. So if you had whatever profile in the camera, it matches the profile by clicking it. So let's see what it does when I click it. So this is what happens to be behind the camera at the time of taking the picture. I'm gonna do the same thing with another photo. For example, this one. Like in this photo, if I click AI match, what happens? So it takes a little bit of time, but according to ON1, when you click AI match, this is what the photo looked like at the time of taking the picture behind the camera. That's pretty interesting. Now, the part that I'm personally really interested in, which is the AI Auto. So when you click AI Auto, it uses the artificial intelligence to bring the best out of your raw file. So let's see what it does. So I'm going to click it. Once I'm going to click it, my computer is already running really fast, because it says resource heavy software. So I'm going to click this one, and it does make the photo look pretty phenomenal. I'm very happy about it. In this photo, the sky is beautiful, but it's quite underexposed at the bottom, right? Now I'm going to click AI Auto. Let's see what it does for me. So it brings the sky back, which is brilliant, beautiful, but the foreground is still quite underexposed. So of course you can go down at the manual and bring the shadow if you want to. It does a really good job. You can bring the midtone if you want to, or you can just brush it, which we are going to show you in a moment. I got the idea of what the auto mode does. However, each of them can be reset by clicking this reset button. Of course, I'm going to do the same thing with this reset button so that I can show you exactly what it does. At the bottom, you have the recover highlights hue. So of course, when you control the exposure, this slider recover the highlight hue. Now you can control the structure. You have the nice, beautiful dehazer, which is pretty amazing. Now to do your temperature and white balance correction, saturation and vibrance, you have this little tool. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to this one, because here it have a really strong blue cast. So if I bring over this dropper and put it on her dress, because her dress is supposed to be pure white. So I'm going to click here. Let's see what it does. So it does a job. It does a very good job. It's not a really bad job. I'm happy about it. And reduce vibrance on the screen. So what happened when you click this one, every time you reduce or add saturation and vibrance, it reduces the effect from the skin. Purity, what it means, I'm going to zoom in a little bit to her dress. When you use that slider, it tries to protect your highlight from any kind of strong color cast, and which is the same case for the shadow, obviously. Now I'm going to bring it back so that it doesn't do too much effect. Now detail mode, I'm going to show you what detail does. This is essentially the global noise reduction and sharpening. What I'm going to do, I'm not going to use this part at all, because ideally you want to individually do sharpening and noise reduction. And of course you have the lens correction, which normally should do the job automatically, or you can control manually, of course. And you can get rid of all kind of color fringe if you are taking a photograph from a high contrast area, which is beautiful, and I personally like it quite well. And to finish this section, you have the fall off. Fall off is basically getting rid of your vignette. So you can add vignette or you can reduce vignette from the corner. Generally it happens with the wide angle lenses quite a lot, and the midpoint as well does the same essentially. So you can control your vignette and vignette of different area with the fall off. Transform, you can click it to turn it on, and you can level it. For instance, if you look at the chart at the bottom, it's not very straight, you can clearly see it. So of course if you turn the transform button on, you can click level and then level it just like that, and then of course you can crop it after using the crop tool like that, which is pretty easy. So I'm gonna do a quick crop so that I can see demonstrate exactly how this works. It's not really hard, it's very easy, but it works. It works really well. I'm not gonna do it perfectly, but I just want to demonstrate exactly how this thing works, and then click apply, and job is done. Of course, you're going to lose some spot, but that's quite given. Now you understood what the develop does, right? And each of them you can turn off and on using this little button there, right? Once you're done, let's say you want to compare your photograph, right? So you want to know exactly what happened with your photo. You want to compare them side by side, right? So let's say I'm just going to add some contrast and add some exposure, so on and so forth, just for the sake of demonstration. And I'm just going to add some saturation because it looks a little bit undersaturated. Now I want to compare them side by side, which is obviously everybody wants to do. So at the bottom of this photo, you have this little A button. When you click this A button, you can clearly see side by side what is happening. That is pretty useful tool in any kind of photographic software, right? I like it personally. You can turn this on off, obviously. Then the crop tool, I already explained how this thing works. It's basic, easy, super simple to use. Transform, which is almost close to crop. Good thing is then every time you put your cursor in each button, it explained on at the same spot at the same time, which is very useful for a lot of people. So you can click transform to, you know, extend the photo. You can change the angle, vertical or horizontal, like that. You can cancel it if you are not satisfied with it. So transform tool is a very useful tool. Text button. Text is very important. Generally, it is an easy way to write something on as a layer on top of a photograph, so that you can add titles, you can add a little description about your photograph, so on and so forth. Extremely useful. You can change your fonts, you can change your sizes of your fonts to as big as you possibly can. You can change color to the different type of colors, of course. You can make it bold. You know, it's basically does exactly the same thing as you'd imagine in Microsoft Word. Extremely useful tool. So I'm not gonna do that, but I just wanted to show you exactly where that belongs, because I have more exciting things to show you. Local is where you want to be most of the time. I have a lot of things to show you here. Now, good thing is that every time you click local here in this section, it also automatically change the mode from develop to local automatically, which is phenomenal. I love this fact. The fact that you don't need to do same thing twice, it's already a lot of time saver. Now, what do you do in the local? Well, it's pretty given. You have the brush, so you can locally brush a certain area. Now, it's already dark because by default, it added in the darken, so you can change it. So let's say you add a brush. I just did a brush just for fun. Now you can change to lighten, darken. You can add saturation or vibrance. You can add contrast. I'm just going to change some slides for you so that you can see exactly what is happening here. So you can see that it's changing dramatically. Phenomenal. So you brush somewhere and you can individually change every single thing locally, but this is not just it. It's get better. You can work on layers. So every time you do something, let's say I'm just going to reset this brush and I'm going to delete it. You can cross and then add an adjustment all over again. So let's say I'm gonna add a brush on this man. Now what you can do, this is the best part, you can double click and change the name to man's face and enter. Now you can add another adjustment layer, brush on her and double click it, say woman face. So now you have two different layers to work with individually. How phenomenal is that, huh? So this is very, very, very useful. Now you can do whatever you want to do. You can also control the opacity. For instance, I'm just going to make it more dark just for the sake of example, and you can control the opacity of your layer. That's exactly the same as Affinity Photo. Now, you can also, of course, turn on and off by clicking this little button. Everything is customizable in ON1 Photo Raw. You can clearly see that, of course, here you have the presets. So you don't have to use the preset. You can click reset and manually you can control everything. This preset is for your sake of usability. You can click more and you have more styles. So you have this HDR look, you have lighten, magic eye layer, you know, so on and so forth. It depends on your need. So I'm going to delete this layer. You got the idea exactly how does it work. Now I'm just going to change a photo to this beautiful woman and zoom into her face. Now I think you can see it clearly, I hope. Now here's the part, you have this local in this section. Now I'm going to click face. Of course, you already imagine what it does. It is the famous portrait AI tool in ON1 Photo Raw. So I'm going to click it. This is going to be fun. So when I click it, something magic happens. Did you see right there? It not only changed to portrait AI automatically, it also detected the face. Now you have this add face button, so you can click it. So you have more than one, you can manually select the face. So I'm gonna stick with the face that ON1 Photo Raw already selected. This is amazing, guys. So you have it. So I'm gonna click it. Now I'm gonna show you some magic. So you have the style called default. So I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit more to her face so that you can see exactly what is happening. So style, here you have default and you can save new style every time you do a change. So you know that already. So you can control the opacity still. Now retouching the skin, what it does, because I didn't do any brush, it automatically selected the face for me, which is already super quick. So I'm gonna add to the maximum 100. You can see the skin got really, really smooth. So I'm gonna reduce it completely and it brought me back to the original skin. Now I'm gonna stick to about 50. Now if you click details, you have this frequency separation or surface blur. So if you're not familiar with this frequency separation, what it does, it gets rid of all the mark of the face while protecting the details. So we can add some shine, for instance. You can reduce the shine as much as you want. You can make the skin as smooth as you possibly can, which I personally do not recommend at all. So I rather ask you to bring it back. She doesn't have any kind of blemishes, but you can control the blemishes with this slider. Now face, the brightness is at 0. If you add, the face become brighter. If you reduce it, it gets darker. Very useful tool. Now slim face, of course, it makes the face a little skinnier, or it brings it back to where it was. So it depends on person to person, but be careful, always ask permission from the subject. So left eye size, what it does, I'm guessing this is gonna be funny. So you can control the size of the eye. You know, sometimes it happens because, you know, we are not perfect. Sometimes when we smile, we don't know our face movement. So what happens is that when you're smiling, you don't know your left eye is moving back and forth, your right eye are moving back and forth. You don't know it until you see your own photo. So this is the part that you kind of fix the size of your eyes. So it does the same thing with the left eye, of course. So be careful, don't overdo it. And you can turn off and on with clicking this button, of course. So eyes, so bright, you can control the brightness of the eye. Don't overdo it. Again, I'm telling you, don't do too much. Whitening, so she has kind of like a brownish eye, so you can make it brighter, of course, with this slider. The dark circle, so you know, we are not perfect, so even me, I have dark circle right now. You can see it right there. So with this slider, you can get rid of your dark circles. And the brow enhance, of course, you can make the eyebrow stronger, or you can make it lighter. Personally, I don't need to have more eyebrows. I think I need to reduce them instead. Now mouth, you can use the teeth whitening to make her tooth white. Again, don't overdo it, otherwise you're going to look like Rose Geller in Friends. Lip vibrance, of course, it controls the vibrance of the lips. As we understood, the vibrance, the brightness, and the hue. You can change the color of the lip to different thing. It's more like changing the color of your lipstick. Another interesting part of ON1 Photo Raw is the AI mask. I'm really excited to show you. So let's show you right now. So I'm gonna change the photo to this one and then change to mask. What is going to happen, you think? So I went to mask, and you have to change the mode to local as well, which is a very important part as well. Now, once you do it, I'm not going to show you all the masks, but I'm going to show you something really interesting. In fact, I'm going to change the photo to this one. I think it's more appropriate to show you exactly how the software works. So here you have this AI. So you have the normal mask, which is obviously you mask it, then you can change the local adjustment. Same, this is the graduated tool. You can see it on the top. So I don't want to show you because you already know what it is. What I want to show you, however, which is this AI one, because what it does, so you have the drop. You can change it to keep. So drop one is the one that you don't want to change, and keep is the one that you want to keep and change it. So I'm going to click drop first, which is the people here. So you click red. So this is the part that it gets interesting. So you don't want to mask completely, but you want to cover most of the area. So I'm gonna do that. And I don't want anything to be affected. Even remotely, even the white part, you want to cover it because the color of the feet, it looks exactly the same as the floor. And same with their reflection, but you don't want to be too precise on it. Now, this is the part that you don't want to be affected. I'm just going to do a quick mask right there, right there, right there. And then you change it to keep. So this is where you want to have control, complete control. So I'm gonna cover it as much as I can. Thing is, at the end of the day, it is still artificial intelligence. So you have to cover most of the area so that the software can analyze as much as it can. So you need to feed a lot of information to the software. So I'm gonna stop somewhere there, just do a quick drop in between their face and click apply. Now this process right now going to take about 5 minutes to 2 years, depend on your computer resources, unfortunately. So right now I'm not going to jump it, but I'm gonna first forward it for you. So let's see what happens. So it's not really perfect there, you can see the legs is here and there, it's a little bit of missing, but it did almost a good job. I mean, of course you can refine it by using this button all over again, but I'm gonna just stop it there for now so that I can show you the refine marks at the very end. So I'm gonna click done, and it's going to refine the mask for you automatically. So you have this refine button there, and of course from then on you can change it to refine edges, for instance. So you can click it there and it will refine it for you. So everything is like automatic, which is a really a big fan of it. And then you can, of course, if you want to see where you are brushing, of course you can click this button and it shows show and hide marks. This is freaking amazing. I love it. And then you can do a really good fine control with this really tiny button. You can change the size of the marks to something else. Like for now I'm gonna go to 150, and then you can do mode remove or add. So I'm gonna go remove and click there. So anyway, you got the idea. And the next button is the blur marks tool. So what it does, it's kind of add feather. So you can go to this little tiny area and then add some feather. Then you can get back to your mode and then make sure that everything is nice and perfect. Now, I'm not done yet. This software has a lot of other tools available. See that next to the adjustment, you can click this thing, you can already see the mask. And also what you can do, you can view the mask exactly so that you can see it exactly what is happening. You can invert it to opposite direction. Of course, you can clearly see the change. And there is another interesting things, right? What you can do, you can go to the levels right there and you have this slider. So it's exactly the same as shadow, midtone and highlight. So it's exactly the same as in Affinity Photo, the blend ranges. So essentially you're telling the software to whether move all the tool in this direction like that. I'm going to show you quickly. And this one as well. So you're telling the software to apply everything to midtone and the highlight and protect the shadow. Or you can do exactly opposite. You can apply everything to the shadow and the midtone area and protect the highlight. You can use the color range. So you click the color range and then you can select this dropper and then telling the software that, okay, only area that I want this software to affect any changes is only in this white section or any white in the photo. This is really amazing and very precise. That's why I said earlier that this is like a marriage between Affinity Photo and Silky Pix Developer Studio Pro. So you are still here. That's a very good news. Now I'm going to show you how to do Panorama, HDR and focus stacking in ON1 Photo RAW. But before I do that, I'm going to show you one last thing, which is effect. So effect is where also you want to be after the local adjustment, which is you add filter. And once you add filter, I'm going to change the photo for the sake of example. For example, this one. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the develop quickly and then add AI auto. Right now, let's say you have a very decent photograph, but you want to change something. What you can do, you can add filter. Then you have this multitude amount of adjustment layer, which is crazy. It's exactly the same as Photoshop adjustment layer and Affinity Photo adjustment layer. Meaning that you have individual color balance, color adjustment, blur, pitch bypass, as the black and white. You have the HDR look. Let's go with the HDR look. So you have this natural, surreal, glow, pretty amazing. And then you can click this little wheel at the show and hide blending mode. You can apply to highlights, midtone, shadow. For instance, for now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to change whatever. Let's say in this particular area, I'm going to add something. I'm going to add color balance. So at the bottom, I'm going to unclick it. At the bottom, I'm going to add extreme amount of hue just for fun. However, I don't want anything to be affected except the greenery. So I can click this little wheel and apply to greens, and only place this effect is applied is on the green. This is amazing. Or if you want to be more precise, you can click this dropper and click on the rock, for instance, so it's only affecting on the rock area. So that's another interesting thing that I want you to think of. You can also protect your highlight, shadow and skin using this slider, so that you want to be very precise about it. And you also have the warm, cool, the presets, such as I'm gonna use that. The warm, cool, you can use watermelon, you can use the siphon. You have plenty of other choices, which is once you scroll down, it changes the color. You can select this reset button and it gets rid of everything. Then what I'm going to do for the sake of example, I'm going to go to one of my favorite tools, which is curve, and add a little S curve just for fun. And check this one out. This is one of my favorite ones. You can also do noise reduction by adding noise reduction right there. However, locally. So you have this preset. It's like a strong noise reduction, and then you can go to this little mask, and automatically on the top it goes to the mask mode. What you can do, you can select paint out, it's already been selected. So what you can do, you can select invert, so you have nothing applied, and you can add paint in and paint exactly where you want the noise reduction to be applied on. Amazing. You can see that live is changing everything. So I'm gonna do a L just for fun so that you can see it. L, and you can clearly see that it changes. So that means that this is where the mask has been applied. You're still here? Good. Now we're gonna show you how to do panorama, HDR and focus stacking with ON1 photo raw. So I'm going to turn on my sidebar. I'm going to go to the browse. So this is where you want to be if you want to go to do your focus stacking, panorama and so on. Go to this thumbnail mode, and I have a folder ready already. So I'm going to start with the focus stacking right there. And what you want to do, I have this JPEG. So JPEG is a lot quicker, and I'm going to show you all the photos individually. So you can see the photo here. I have mask focused at the bottom, and as I go forward it's changing the focus to the bows. So you go to that section, select with Control A, go to the focus, and it takes some time. So if you have raw or bigger file, it takes a lot of time, but if you don't, you have a smaller file, it actually takes a lot less time. So now you can see that you have a really nice and beautiful focus already been stacked. Then from there you can change it to align photos. It's already been aligned. You can layered result open in develop, so you automatically go to develop to do further adjustment. You can control the depth of field. I prefer it somewhere at the bottom, which is fine. You have other adjustment, and you can get rid of photos in between if you think that those photos has been giving you troubles. And you can either save it or you can either cancel it. So I'm going to cancel it, but at least you know how to do that. Now we're going to go back to different folder, and we're going to go to panorama. I'm going to select, I already made an example, but I'm going to select this one and all the way to the final one with Control Shift select, then click Pano, and it takes a little bit of time. And beam, it was really quick. Now of course you can do auto, spatial or collage. I prefer to leave it in auto. And edges, you can either crop it automatically or you can wrap to fill. So wrap to fill meaning that it uses artificial intelligence to fill up the gaps. And of course you can keep the file size to 100%. Pretty easy, pretty quick. So I'm gonna cancel it, at least you know how to do that. Now finally the HDR. So I'm going to go to my HDR folder, and I'm going to go to my JPEG folder. I will select all of them with the Control A and HDR, and it doesn't take time. So you can either select one of the preset, natural auto, surreal auto. I personally prefer to select this natural auto because it's not that bad. However, if it gives you trouble, you can go back to original photo, select all of them, the raw file, and click HDR and check this one out. So you have this HDR look. You can of course select your landscape mode, portrait mode, vivid, natural, neutral. So I'm going to click it to standard, and then from there what I can do, I can add, reduce highlight, add some contrast. You can add more blacks or reduce blacks. You can recover highlight hue. It looks exactly same as the develop mode, and you can control the temperature. You can reduce or add vibrance and so on and so forth. So it's pretty easy, pretty quick. You can click HDR look and select surreal, natural, glow, all this kind of good stuff. And you can click save to continue further edit. So I'm going to cancel it because you already know how to do that. Now in order to export, you can click export, and from there you have watermarks. You can click the watermark and write whatever. You can either add an image on top of it as a layer, or you can write something. Sharpening, generally I keep it to screen because most of my photo actually goes to the social media. but you have other option, of course, right there. You can clearly see it for printing purpose. And then for the export, you can click choose to, I have folder selected already. You can change it. Then you can do rename. So you can click this plus or minus to reduce whatever preset you have selected, or add more and do whatever you want to do with serial number, date, text, or current name. Is totally up to you. And after that, you can select your file type. For example, whether you want to export JPEG, Photoshop, which is PSD file, TIFF, or PNG. Anyway, so I think you got the idea how this software works already. It took a long time to explain, but I believe that after this, it shouldn't take long for you to understand this software. So if this video has been very useful to you, like, subscribe, and save it. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.